Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Election Night 2024. Today we have for the Democrats incumbent President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris versus for the Republicans we have Ron DeSantis, Florida's governor, and Winsome Sears, the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, serving under Glenn Youngkin. So the candidate positions for the Biden-Harris campaign, they're very socially liberal, they're not super protectionist, they are moderately pro-union, moderately populist economically. For the DeSantis-Sears campaign, they are somewhat more trade protectionist, at least they claim to be. They are slightly less pro-union. They are moderately populist, more roughly about the same as Biden. You could say more or less, arguably. They are very socially conservative. They claim to only want to ban late-term abortion and leave alone everything else, but they have some trustability issues on this. A lot of people do not trust them. And there's also the issue of, DeSantis is running as a Trump heir, but does he have the appeal? He's not an outsider. He's still a politician. And some polls have indicated that people do not trust him as much as they trusted Trump on the issue of authenticity, on outsiderness, and this might be a problem for him, his appeal. And also another problem is that this is a southern ticket. DeSantis from Florida, Sears from Virginia, these are both southern states, so how much appeal would they have to other regions of the United States? So, we have our first batch of poll closings at 7 p.m. Eastern, and Kentucky goes to Ron DeSantis. He wins it by a safe margin, roughly the same as Trump, slightly less. Vermont, meanwhile, goes to Joe Biden, about the same margin as he won in 2020. Indiana, it is too early to call. South Carolina as well, and Georgia, a very key battleground state. Biden leads narrowly by the skin of his teeth. Virginia, Winsome Sears' home state, 13 electoral votes, is also too early to call. DeSantis leads massively, but this is because Republican counties count first. DeSantis picked Winsome Sears, Glenn Youngkin's vice governor, as his running mate, and hopefully in attempts to make Virginia competitive or possibly even flip it. And who knows if that will come to fruition tonight. We'll be keeping an eye on Virginia tonight. So poll closings, it is 7:30 p.m. and we have poll closings out of 3 states. West Virginia, 4 electoral votes goes to Ron DeSantis by a slightly decreased margin. North Carolina, 16 electoral votes, too close to call. Biden leads by the skin of his teeth. Ohio, 17 electoral votes, too close to call. Biden narrowly leads in this must-win for DeSantis. Meanwhile, we can finally call Indiana. Ron DeSantis wins Indiana's 11 electoral votes. He wins it by a decreased margin from Trump's 17-point margin in 2020. We presumed that his margin in the state would shrink because Mike Pence is not on the ballot, is not on the ticket. And now the electoral maps on your screen: 3 for Democrats, 23 for Republicans, 71 too close to call. We have the second biggest batch of poll closings of the night, 8 p.m. EST. Ron DeSantis wins 43 combined electoral votes out of the 5 states on your screen. No surprise there. His margins are roughly in line with those of Trump. Joe Biden, meanwhile, wins 68 electoral votes out of these states on your screen. No surprise there. All very solid blue states. Meanwhile, Florida, we can actually call this right at poll closing time. Ron DeSantis' home state, 30 electoral votes. He wins the state by 9 to 15 points, we project. Probably a safe margin, or possibly a high likely. We saw this the foreshadowing to this was 2022 when he won the governor's race by nearly 20 points, nearly twice the margin of today. Presidential level is a little less red, but nonetheless, this is a huge win considering Florida was a swing state, was 3-point win for Trump in 2020. Meanwhile, Maine's 1st district, 1 electoral vote. We can call for Biden, about the same margin that he won in 2020. Maine's 2nd district, meanwhile, is too close to call. Biden narrowly leads in this district that went for Trump by 8 points each time. Maine at large is also too close to call. Biden narrowly leads by the skin of his teeth in this district. In the state too. New Hampshire, 4 electoral votes. Biden narrowly leads here. It is too close to call. This state, very socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. Who knows which way it will go? They're very anti-war. We're not sure. Tulsi Gabbard was campaigning for them for this DeSantis and Sears in this state. But who knows how much of an effect she'll have. Pennsylvania, the mother of all battleground states. Too early to call. DeSantis leads massively, but this is because Republican counties count first. And finally, we can call South Carolina, 9 electoral votes for DeSantis and Sears. He wins us by 10 to 13 margin. This is an improvement on Trump's 10-point margin in 2020. Electoral map is on your screen. 105 for DeSantis, 75 for Joe Biden, and 88 electoral votes undecided. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we can call Arkansas, Bill Clinton's home state, for Ron DeSantis. He wins it by roughly the same margin as Trump did. Well, and now it is 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we have the biggest batch of poll votes tonight. Ron DeSantis wins 27 electoral votes out of the following states, very conservative states, no surprise there. New York, meanwhile, goes to Joe Biden, the Empire State, gives its 28 electoral votes to the incumbent president. This by about the same margin as 2020, but perhaps slightly narrower. We saw there was a little bit of a backlash to Democrats with the governor's race, which Kathy Hochul nearly lost, and she is very unpopular in the state, especially among union workers, for appointing the anti-union pro-life judge. Colorado, 10 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 11 to 16 point win, roughly in line with his 13-point win in 2020. State rapidly trending blue. Nebraska's 2nd district, also rapidly trending blue, 1 electoral vote, but it is too close to call right now. We don't know. Polls showed a narrower race this time. DeSantis and Sears have great suburban appeal. Suburban being anti-CRT and being a center point of their platform. Biden leads by 3 points in this very contested district. We'll see who it goes to and how competitive this can get in the end. Biden won this by 6 points in 2020. Trump won it by 1 point in 2016. Michigan, 15 electoral votes, too close to call. DeSantis narrowly leads by the skin of his teeth, but this is because Republican areas are reporting first. Wisconsin, same story there. DeSantis leads, but who knows if he'll be able to hold on. If he holds on, he's in this state. This is going to be very hard for him to win. If he holds on here, DeSantis is president. Minnesota also, DeSantis narrowly leads here, but this is again, Republican areas reporting first. If DeSantis can win Minnesota, he'll be having a blowout, and this will be like a phenomenal night for Republicans, as this state hasn't voted Republican since 1972. It's the longest streak of Democrat voting out of any state in the Union currently so far. New Mexico, Biden narrowly leads, too close to call. Arizona also, Biden has a massive lead, but This is because Democrat areas count first. Who knows if DeSantis can beat it? He might very much be able to. We don't know yet. Texas also, this is a must-win for either campaign. Too close to call. DeSantis narrowly leads. If DeSantis loses Texas, he's done. Even if he wins Minnesota and all those other states. So, electoral map is on your screen. 138 for DeSantis, 113 for Biden, 180 undecided. Poll closings. It is 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can call Montana for Ron DeSantis. This is about the same margin as Trump won it by, slightly decreased because of rural turnout. Utah, same thing. Utah, he's winning it by twice the margin of Trump. Trump only won this by around 10 points, I think. DeSantis wins it by 20 to 25. Mitt Romney endorsed Ron DeSantis, and that really helped. Iowa, 6 electoral votes. DeSantis leads by around 7 points, but it is way too early to call. Nevada also, 6 electoral votes. DeSantis leads, too early to call. And we can finally call Ohio. 17 electoral votes for Ron DeSantis. He is projected to win the state by somewhere between 6 to 9 points, so it seems like he's going to do a little worse than Trump did. Trump won it by 8 points, but he could do it a little better just because of perhaps national environment or the hatred of Biden. We don't know yet. Maine 2nd District also, Ron DeSantis wins. He wins this by 5 to 8 points, so he will do a little worse than Trump in the district. And finally, we can call Texas. 40 electoral votes. And it finally did go for Ron DeSantis after all. He wins by 8 to 13 points. It could be slightly less, or this is more than Trump won it in 2020 by. He only won it by 6 points. But this could be slightly less than Trump's 9-point victory in 2016 in the state. Maine at large, 2 electoral votes. We can finally call for Joe Biden. And he wins it by 4 to 7 points. This is a decreased margin from Joe Biden's 9-point win in the state in 2020. New Mexico, 5 electoral votes. Pressure to go to Biden by 5 to 8 points. This is a decrease from his 10-point margin. And Virginia, we can finally call 13 electoral votes. It ends up going to Biden by a very decreased margin. He won it by 10. In 2020, it could go to by as little as 2, or by as much as 6, but yeah, it looks like DeSantis picking Sears for his vice president it did help in the state, but not enough to get him over the hump. A little bit of a disappointment for the DeSantis campaign, but nonetheless, they still have a lot of hope. Virginia was not a must-win. Electoral map 133 to 206 for the Republicans. 114 undecided. It's 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have 5 states. Poll closings: California, 54 electoral votes going to Joe Biden by a decreased margin. He won it by over 30. 2020. Oregon, about the same. It could go by a little less. He won it by 17 points in 2020. Washington, 12 electoral votes. About the same margin, slightly decreased. And Hawaii, 4 electoral votes, about the same margin. Tulsi Gabbard also gave a speech, but it apparently didn't have much effect in this very socially liberal state. Idaho, 4 electoral votes. DeSantis wins this by 27 to 33 points, about on par with what Trump won it by, perhaps slightly less. And Iowa, same deal here. Trump won it by 9. DeSantis could win it by as little as 7, or as much as 10. And the electoral map on your screen: 216 for Republicans, 211 for Democrats, 108 electoral votes still undecided. Indeterminate. 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and polls are closed in Alaska, which we project for Ron DeSantis by 10 to 15 points as an improvement on Trump's 10-point margin in 2020. And North Carolina, we can finally call for Ron DeSantis: 16 electoral votes, 3 to 4 points victory for Ron DeSantis in North Carolina. The electoral map's on your screen now. 235 for Republicans, 211 for Democrats. And it is now 12 o'clock p.m. and is the next day. Day after the election. You can finally call Minnesota for Biden. 10 electoral votes by 2 to 4 points. This is a huge decrease from Biden's 7-point margin in 2020, but is slightly increased from Hillary's 1-point margin in 2016. And it is now 5 p.m., 5 hours later, and we can finally call Wisconsin. Joe Biden is the apparent winner in the state. We project that he is going to win. It seems he's going to win by only around 0.2 points, about the margin that Al Gore won Wisconsin against George Bush in 2000. Very narrow, pretty absurd margin. DeSantis tried to appeal to the state with his protectionist policy, but it looks like they did not trust him on that. The state still narrowly goes to Biden. The rules did not turn out nearly enough. Well, they nearly turned out enough, but it wasn't enough to get over the hump, just barely. So Wisconsin just lands in the... Unfortunately for DeSantis, Wisconsin lands in the Biden column. It's a bad sign for his appeal across the rest of the Rust Belt. It is now November 7th. It is 2 days after the election, and we can finally call Michigan. This is not surprising given the call in Wisconsin, wins by a slightly bigger margin than in Wisconsin, but this is a decrease from Biden's nearly 3-point margin in 2020. And Georgia, this is a good sign for the DeSantis campaign. He is projected to flip Georgia, a neighboring state to Florida, he could win by as little as a tilt margin to as much as 3 points. Polls showed him in this state leading Biden by up to 4 points, and looks like the polls were right. Well, so they were still overestimating him slightly, but they ultimately did show that he was going to flip the state at least one last time. The state's heavily trending blue. Probably not going to vote for him again, but this is some great news for the DeSantis campaign. He has used Georgia to its maximum efficiency, and one last time it lands red before it descends into the blue canyon for the rest of its life. The electoral map's on your screen now. There are only 5 electoral votes separate the two candidates. DeSantis only leads by 5 electoral votes. Meanwhile, we have 41 electoral votes left undecided. Each of these this is going to be a very close election, it seems. And each of these states can make or break either campaign, pretty much. November 8th, it is 3 days after the election. This is election week. We have stopped calling, the Merriam-Webster dictionary has stopped calling it election day. Now we just call it election week, or election bi-week, or election month. Nebraska's 2nd district, we can finally project for Joe Biden. He can win this by as little as a tilt margin to as much as 2 points. DeSantis, he thought appointing Sears and being very pro-CRT would help him, and it did help him, but it was not enough to get him over the hump, just like in Wisconsin with the Rust Belt. And it's now November 10th, 5 full days after the election, nearly a week. And Nevada, this is a very good sign for the DeSantis campaign. This was a must-win, 6 electoral votes. He wins Nevada by a tilt margin. This state, it had issues. There was fear that he could lose the state because of the pro-choice vote there, but it wasn't enough to hurt him, to destroy him here. He barely pierces Nevada and flips it red for the first time since 2004. Nevada showing a very redward trend, doing like in 2020, when it didn't budge, even though the whole nation shifted 2 points to the left. And Joe Lombardo winning the governor's race, and Adam Laxalt nearly winning the Senate race. And now, it shows in line with its redwood trend. DeSantis narrowly cracks the state. And Pennsylvania, Biden's sort of ish second home state. 19 electoral votes. We call for Joe Biden narrowly. No surprise here, given the call in Wisconsin. He wins it by slightly more. He wins it by 0.6 points. This is a decrease from his 1.2% margin in 2020. It's now November 11th, 6 days after the election, and we can finally call Arizona. 11 electoral votes. This is a very good sign for the DeSantis campaign. 0, he wins it by a tilt margin, narrowly pierces the state. Rapidly trending blue, also just same story as Georgia. He perhaps flips it red one last time. And we now have the electoral map on your screen. And only 4 electoral votes is up for grabs in New Hampshire. The election all comes down to the state of New Hampshire. Whoever New Hampshire votes for wins. We have not seen an election this close. This is probably even closer than Bush or 2000. It was like those times it all came down to Florida, 25 electoral votes back then, or Ohio, which was like 18 or 19. But this time it is New Hampshire. Puny New Hampshire, 4 electoral votes. So if you really think small states don't matter, this is your opportunity to be proven wrong. Right now, everything hinges on this little 4 electoral votes. It's going to make or break either side. And now, it is November 12th, 2024, 7 whole days after the election. It didn't even take this long to call 2020. 2020 took 3 days to call. 3 to 4 days. It was called on Saturday. The election day was Tuesday. But this is like a whole week after. So this is next Tuesday after the election. And New Hampshire goes for Joe Biden, anywhere from a tilt margin to 2 points. And it looks like with that projection, we call Joe Biden, despite being historically unpopular, he's been re-elected president. Joe Biden continues to be the 46th president of the United States. And the electoral map is on your screen now. 270 for Joe Biden. He only narrowly passes. He gets the bare minimum of electoral votes he needed. The exact magic number. And DeSantis only loses it by 2 electoral votes. This is perhaps the closest electoral count we've ever seen in a very, 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 very long time. This is even closer than Bush. In 2000, he won with 271 electoral votes, 1 more than Joe Biden did. And Al Gore, he only lost by, he got 267. And you can see the flips on the screen. There are no Biden flips. There are 3 DeSantis flips. He flipped Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. He had hoped to flip some in the Rust Belt, but he failed, just by the skin of his teeth. Meanwhile, it's a different story in the popular vote. DeSantis leads by 1 point, slightly over a point in the popular vote. This is a very awkward moment for both parties. And discontent. There are protests in the streets, and it is not going very well. And there are talks about perhaps a faithless elector, someone else overturning the electoral vote, because all it would take is 1 to hand this election to deprive Joe Biden of his electoral college victory, but popular vote defeat. And now it is January 6, 2025, and we have some breaking news, and it materialized. It happened. The prophecy happened. 1 faithless elector defected from Joe Biden, and Biden ended up with only 269 electoral votes to DeSantis' 265. He had 4 faithless electors. The vote goes to House of Representatives, some of those faithless electors voted for Donald Trump on DeSantis' side. And the House has voted for DeSantis. The Senate voted for Sears as vice president, thus depriving Joe Biden of his electoral college victory and depriving him of a second term and handing it to the winner of the popular vote. So Democrats outraged, and there are protests on the left. You can see that's a protest in Washington D.C. About DeSantis is not my president. Hashtag BLM. Hashtag fuck D. Hashtag F DeSantis. FDT. Yes. That means F DeSantis, not F Donald Trump. And so the Democrats are now calling to obey the Electoral College map and make it a maps-only system and not make it have anything to do with any electors who can steal the election from them. And now some Republicans are calling to abolish the Electoral College. And there are plenty of people on the right wearing the Joe Biden is not my president sticker. And breaking news, is now January 20, 2025, and DeSantis is inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. Biden and Harris have refused to attend or concede. They flew back to their respective home states earlier today. Trump has also refused to attend. Meanwhile, Glenn Youngkin made the trip from Richmond to D.C. to congratulate his former lieutenant governor, Winsome Sears, on her new position. He perhaps is hoping to be the successor, perhaps, to DeSantis, perhaps, or perhaps groom Winsome to be the successor. He's seen shaking hands on the right with President Ron DeSantis, and the protests are 3 times larger than in 2016. There were people protesting immediately outside and disrupting the inauguration with their loud chants of "not my president" and "illegitimate" and "carpetbagger" and "go back to Florida." And and the whole nation is more divided than ever, and the United States has dropped several points on the World Stability Index and the Fragile States Index as well. And thank you for watching. So I thought this was a pretty, just a unique scenario. Just I think it really highlights the risks of either an electoral college tie or a close to electoral college tie, even if it's 270. One faithless elector could kill you, could destroy. And it's not necessarily guaranteed to happen. Who knows? Maybe DeSantis loses Nevada. Maybe he wins Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. Maybe. Who knows? But I think this is definitely a possibility. And I think it's very possible DeSantis could win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College. So maybe it is time for both sides to get together and say, no, we don't want the Electoral College anymore. Who knows? But yeah, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like videos like these, like, comment, subscribe below, and I'll see you later.